Hey folks, it's Fernando doing another video for the More Survivalist, and in this video I'm going to be addressing what's the real situation like in Europe. If you are American, interested in knowing what's really happening over here, then stick around. If you're one of my friends from UK, worried and wondering what's going to be happening, and especially interested in knowing what news are like outside of UK and on the side of the European Union, stick around as well. Now, one of the key things to understand here is knowing your media outlet. What you're going to be reading really depends on the bias that the media outlet has, the interest it represents, its political inclinations. BBC pretty much would be the official UK government agenda that is standing for. Express is going to be a little bit more of the more of a far right, a little bit more dramatic in terms of covering Brexit. Very much in favor of Brexit, it has always been. In anti-EU, same for most of these other ones. Daily Mail as well, very much anti-European Union. Anything that's anti-European Union is going to be placed like a big dramatic headline in those media outlets. The Guardian, a little bit more objective leaning in terms of Brexit. I think that the Independent would be the only one that was pro-EU throughout Brexit, at least the way I've seen it. But you have to understand where that is coming from. Now, what's the situation now with Brexit? For you guys, especially you folks in the United States that have no clue what's going on. Basically, the UK has chosen democratically, right, to leave the European Union, and they've triggered what's called the Article 50, which is basically like, you know, presenting a divorce paper. That would be the thing that gets them out of the European Union 2 years from the moment that Article 50 is triggered. And Article 50 has already been triggered. There's no going back from what's happening now in terms of UK leaving the European Union. I mean, even there's really no way at this point, especially because even if for whatever reason someone in UK decides to not do it, at this point pretty much the other 27 countries can say, well, no, this already started and we cannot stop this right now, and we don't want to do so. And once that Article 50 is triggered, there's simply no going back to it. So UK will be leaving the European Union. One of the things, especially for my friends in UK, that I see that the press insists a lot on is, especially of course all the anti-EU media outlets insist on, look at how bad the EU is, how all the 27 other countries are aligning against us. And it's not a matter of aligning against anyone, it's simply you're no longer part of the Union. The 27 other countries are looking after their own best interests, just exactly like the UK is looking after its own best interests. So it's a conflict, you know, never said better than this. It's simply a conflict of interests. The European Union has its own interests and the UK has their own interests. One of the things that is quite misleading from the British press is this idea that the two of them are on the same playing field of negotiations. It's simply not true. The European Union is much larger. The other 27 countries is a much bigger economy than UK alone, and you have to learn to tell the difference between opinion. For example, voting for Brexit one way or the other, that's a matter of a personal opinion. I feel this way. I think this is going to be better for us to stay, to leave. That's your opinion, right? Now, you cannot confuse that with things like facts. GDP of a country, that's pretty much a fact. Now here I have from Wikipedia, this is list of countries by GDP. I'm using here PPP because I think it represents a little bit better, but you have nominal as well if you want to check those instead. What you have here is basically the top countries. This is, just so as to have a basic idea. For 2017, you have China #1 with 23 million, European Union with 20, United States with 19, right? You have all the other countries as well. But basically, look at this. If you have the European Union with 20 million, you have Germany with 4 million, and you have United Kingdom with 2.9 million. The British press often puts like the European Union in the same playing field as UK. It's simply not the case. I mean, Germany alone is quite bigger than UK in terms of GDP. It would be actually closer to France, with 2.8 million, or Italy with even 2.3. That's more of a comparison. If United Kingdom was in negotiations with France, that would be somewhat of a same level. Now, United Kingdom against the other 27 countries, it is not the same. And it's a reality that many folks in the United Kingdom simply do not understand, because the press has been insisting, other than, I think these two, the Guardian, which is more pro-EU, and yeah, for sure the Independent, these two would be the ones that are a little bit more objective in terms of the numbers of that, but it's simply not the same level. I mean, I've lived in Northern Ireland, which is part of UK. I have family that lives in London. I know what I'm talking about. If you just look at what you have in your supermarket, right? If you're worried about what's going to be happening in Brexit, right, and you're in UK, and you're in Tesco, and you're in Sainsbury or Asda, wherever it is that you are, pick any product and see where it's made. Chances is it's not made in UK, it's made in EU, it's made in the continent side, because those are the big food producers, right? UK, most of this, and two important things to keep in mind, most of this economy, most of the UK's economy, this 2.9 million, is mostly services, mostly financial services, right? It's not consumables that you're actually having yourself. And you have to keep in mind that this is the result of decades of being part of the European Union. Once you leave it, a lot of this will simply not hold anymore, because all that growth that was strongly linked to being like the financial capital of the European Union will suddenly no longer be a factor. And you have many companies, many financial companies and banks already having to relocate because of this same thing. Going back to your visit to the supermarket, see where things are made. I think it's like 50% of the food used in UK is brought from abroad. If you're, for example, in Spain, you can look at most of the groceries, and it's pretty much the same thing. Most of it is not actually being made in UK. So once again, you have this very misguided opinion of the press that UK can do just as right without the European Union. It's just not true. One of the things that is being repeated time and again is that no deal is better than a bad deal. That's just a lie. There will have to be some deal, and it's not because the European Union really needs UK so as to accept a deal. It's simply because UK cannot survive without trading with its biggest, most important partner, one that is not only linked economically, even if once you're out of the European Union, that's not going to be the case anymore, but it's also the closest one that you have. I mean, you cannot simply replace half of the stuff that you're bringing from EU and replacing it from stuff you buy from Mexico or India. You're not going to be getting by on rice from India. It's not going to be a realistic option. Some form of agreement will have to be reached, most of all, so as to avoid. I mean, how stupid is this idea that no deal is better than a bad deal? If you cut trade with the European Union right now, UK would be starving in a matter of days. I mean, you have to use some common sense here. Some kind of trade deal will be, in fact, agreed on. Now, the thing is, of course, that there are different interests. The EU definitely wants, the European Union definitely wants to look after its own interests, just like UK wants, and one of that is settling the famous divorce bill, which is whatever compromises has been already agreed by UK. And of course, you have to keep in mind that all of this process is going to be terribly expensive. Pretty sure the other 27 countries are not looking forward to pay for something that they had no voice in. The one that chose to leave was in fact UK, and it's logical that the expense of leaving should be on their half. Now, exactly how much money is it 100 billions? Is it 50, 10, 5? I mean, I have no idea, and at this point I'm not sure anyone does. Some money will have to be agreed on. Now, the hardcore Brexiter UKIP type will say, tell them to shove it. We're not paying a single cent. We're out. That's again impossible, because if you really do that, you will leave no other option but to avoid any further commerce with the country from that point onwards. If you cannot agree on settling this bill first, you cannot move towards working on a realistic, friendly trade agreement if you're already refusing to pay whatever has been decided by the people involved that should be paid. These are things that you of course you have fanatics on both sides. You have people that are extremely ignorant commenting and voicing their opinion, but the more level-headed voices, the ones that are actually more informed, somewhat agree with what I'm saying here. Now, one of the things that you have to be careful is with the Prime Minister Theresa May. She's making certain claims. I mean, today she was saying that the EU press is trying to affect results of the UK. That's actually an outright lie, misrepresentation. Look at this. This is from BBC. Theresa May accuses EU of trying to affect UK elections. And this is from Spain, one of the main media outlets in Spain. May acusa a Europa de influenciar en las elecciones británicas. Basically the same thing. And if you look at this other one, Theresa May accuses EU of influence. This is literally the exact same translation of the headline that you have in the BBC. There's no misrepresentation of any kind. And I read both articles, and it's the same thing for France 24, and it's the same thing for the Irish outlets. It's basically the same thing for everyone. There's really no misrepresentation of anything. And by God, who cares about who you people elect as your prime minister? It's not. I mean, a politician, obviously, Theresa May is trying to get elected with lots of votes, as to put as many. Take as many seats as possible. Entirely understandable. It is kind of dangerous to mess with Brexit so as to have personal political gains, or for her party. That's kind of messy because it could have consequences on the Brexit negotiations, actually quite bad. And I think that the ones that are celebrating this the most is actually the politicians representing the interests of the European Union, because this is looking awfully bad, very unstable, and again, it's not realistic. It's not a smart negotiation by any means to make these outrageous claims that the European Union is trying to affect in any way the elections over there. I mean, there's really no change. It changes nothing for people in EU whoever you put as, it doesn't give any power in those negotiations by any means. The only things that are going to be taken into account are the numbers, the facts, the people that are living in each country that need to be sorted out. It makes no difference. Actually, well, yeah, it does. I mean, having negotiations with a woman that is unstable and doesn't seem to be very much understanding how things are working out, that's kind of bad. But who cares if she wins for 10, 20 or whatever points more or less. That stronger hand that she's talking about many times, it's not gonna be any stronger in any way. I mean, if they're negotiating with the same person, that changes absolutely nothing. Of course it changes it for her political party. That's why this is happening. But finally, one of the big lies in terms of the timing, she says that the EU politicians have chosen the timing. Brexit was entirely handled by the UK government. The EU had nothing to do with that. Same for these elections. These were called by herself. So what timing is she making reference to? There's really no timing being used by anyone here, and these threats that she says, it's simply not threats. It's just a matter of fact that, so as to talk about trade agreements, you first have to settle whatever bills you have left. That's for any small business as well. If you cannot agree on that, you're hardly going to be agreeing on what kind of trade you're going to be having after that, if you're not capable of sorting out and paying whatever it is that you have to pay before getting to that point. Folks, gonna be all for now. Any questions, leave them below. I'll do my best to answer them. No stupid rants, because I'm of course gonna be deleting those. Trying to be as objective as possible. Please try doing the same as well. That's gonna be all for now. Remember to subscribe. Take care. See you on our next video.